Good afternoon, and welcome to AIADA's AutoTalk. I'm Rachel Salamani, your host for today's session. AutoTalks are held the third Tuesday of every month at 10 a.m. and repeated again at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Before I introduce today's speaker, let me review a few administrative items. Everyone that is registered for today's program will receive a copy by the end of the week. If you have any questions, please feel free to enter those in the lower right side of your screen under the Q&A box. And please, after today's program, stay on the line for some important programming announcements. And now, join me in welcoming today's presenter, Matt Sennett. Matt is the Home Office Manager of Field Services for Federated Insurance. He has a master's degree in safety, holds several professional designations, and has been with Federated for 14 years. He currently oversees the development of risk management products, tools, services, and training for internal employees as well as policyholders. Matt, welcome and take it away.
Thanks for joining us this afternoon for a presentation on distracted driving. This topic is an important one to us here at Federated Insurance and has been for some time. This is actually the What's Important to You program is the third one that we've rolled out in recent years, and we're actually rolling out a fourth in March entitled Safe Driving, SAFE, which is an acronym for Speed, Attention, Fatigue, and Emotion. And so the attention piece in that new program will also be focused on distracted driving. So the reason for all of these distracted driving programs is we have noticed an increasing trend ever since the early 2000s, and it's gotten worse. And so we like to address it whenever we can and with all of our important clients, and we're sharing this message with AIADA as well today. So the agenda for today's webinar, really want to take some time to focus on resensitizing ourselves to the dangers of distracted driving. And so as we move through this presentation, I'd ask that you take a fresh perspective on the subject and keep in mind the things that are most important to you in life, like family, friends, and loved ones. I think only then we can actually put the issue of distracted driving in the proper context and move forward with some solutions for you, your businesses, and your employees. To get things kicked off here and to get you thinking a little bit, I'm going to ask you a couple questions, and just want you to ponder on these. The first one being, have you ever driven behind a vehicle that swerved outside its lane? Have you ever driven next to someone who was texting while driving, and did that cause concern for you? And I think those first two questions, as you're kind of pondering, I think pretty much all of us have encountered situations like that. These next three questions, I'd like you to ponder on these as well, and that's, have you ever been tempted to check your phone when alerted of a new text message, email, or social media post while driving? Have you ever missed a turn or exit while using your phone? And have you ever found yourself in another lane? So I think it's easy to be hypercritical of others when we notice distracted driving out on the roads, but the fact of the matter is I think there's a lot of fingers pointing back at us as well. And I think sometimes we tend to be hypocritical with our judgment of others when we're doing the same thing. And that's really what today's webinar is about, is calling attention to that matter and really increasing awareness. At the heart of the issue is the driver, and that's us again. It's also our employees and it's our family members. How do we deal with all of the many different distracting temptations while driving? Again, I would say not very well, and we all partake in distracted driving to some degree. From habits as seemingly as innocent as daydreaming, adjusting the radio, or drinking coffee to the more sinister behavior of texting while driving, it's time to become more aware of these distractions which we've grown accustomed to and resolve to change our poor driving behaviors. So we all have examples of things we've done in the past or something we've witnessed other drivers doing. I know in my 12 years as a field guy for Federated Insurance, I've seen quite a few distractions myself. I'd say, unfortunately, many of us in the room may even have a personal account of a crash that was caused by a distracted driver, whether it involved a friend or a family member. Changing bad driving habits and behaviors takes work. There are many different things working against us. For one, the technology and all the new cars of these days, GPS, stereo systems, and all the other bells and whistles. And just a desire to stay connected at all times. Humans are social creatures, and studies have shown that just the mere sound of a cell phone going off, whether it's a text or a phone call, is distracting enough. It activates the most primitive part in the brain, which is the stimulus reward center, And for many, that can be too tempting to ignore. They want to connect with that person, so they pick up their phone and create a distraction. So many experts suggest actually shutting off your ringer while driving to prevent any distractions from the sound of your cell phone. The number of crashes from distracted driving happening every year is just staggering. It's estimated that 421,000 accidents per year and 3,000 deaths occur to distracted driving. That's 1,053 every day. And that's the equivalent of 20 average-sized jetliners crashing every year with total fatalities. I bet not too many people have thought about it this way, but when we become so desensitized to the news of car crashes and deaths that we don't think much of it, or at least for very long, that's where we get into trouble. It truly is an epidemic, and it needs more attention and action. I guarantee that if it was truly an epidemic of jetliners crashing in that fashion, there'd be a public outcry and a swift call to action. From an insurance perspective, the purpose of insurance, obviously, is to help return things to pre-loss conditions, to help make someone whole again after a loss. And I'd say that insurance functions really well when it comes to property losses, replacing or repairing damaged vehicles, et cetera, and the like. But when death and tragedy are involved, insurance is very limited in what it can do. Insurance can't bring 3,000 people back each year, and it can't make those suffering from devastating injuries whole again. There's really no way to fully recover from accidents, both from a physical and oftentimes psychological standpoint. For businesses, there's also hidden costs, such as loss of productivity from an injured or killed employee, decreased morale, bad press, reputation damages, and many others. According to the National Safety Council, vehicle crashes are actually the #1 cause of work-related deaths in America. If we think about that, I'm sure we can all come up with some really dangerous jobs that we're aware of that exist out there, but driving tops them all. In 2015, there was a 7.2% increase in crashes on our roadways. This is the largest single-year increase in 50 years. Most of us know that roadways have gotten more dangerous, but the question is, what have you done personally about it, and what has your business done? Are you part of the problem or the solution? That's my challenge. Americans send approximately 6 billion text messages every single day. According to a study done at Virginia Tech, those who text while driving are over 23 times more likely to be involved in a crash. And studies confirm that many people feel while driving while using a cell phone is dangerous, but how many of us continue to do that? We all take risks every day. Just getting up in the morning has risks in and of itself, and usually there is an internal process that goes on when you decide which risks to take and which ones to pass on. And most of us do a pretty good job with that until it comes to repetitive tasks and bad habits. And unfortunately, that's what driving is to many of us. Humans are funny creatures. If we take risk in, let's say, texting while driving, and we come away without any negative consequences, we think we can do it again and again with the same result. However, it's only after we have a close call that we come back to realizing how incredibly ignorant it was to take that risk. And we straighten up for a while, right? But then it's right back at it after a while, back into the bad habits. So what's it going to take to break this vicious cycle? That's the question. I'd say it's all about changing driving behaviors and breaking bad habits. Again, it takes a lot of work. As a society, we have worked very hard to reduce drunk driving and DUI behaviors. No one wants to admit to doing it because it is so incredibly dangerous and irresponsible, and drunk driving has a shame factor associated with it. But what about distracted driving? The fact is, studies show that drivers who talk on a cell phone while driving actually have a slower reaction time than someone who is intoxicated. Driving with a BAC of 0.08 is illegal in all 50 states. But what about distracted driving? Some states have enacted laws to help control a few specific distractions, mainly dealing with cell phone use, but not all of them have. And quite frankly, I don't think that's the solution anyway. Speeding is illegal, but people continue to do that even though it's illegal in all states as well. It really comes down to personal awareness of the issue and a commitment to change. This is what we're trying to address through our campaign, What's Important to You. So I'd ask, what is the most important text message that you've ever received while driving? And would it have been worth dying for, or would it have been worth killing for? You don't want to be in an accident while texting and driving. Heaven forbid you injure or kill somebody. It will come to light. You're on the phone and or texting. And even though it's not illegal to talk on the cell phone, it can still be used against your company in court. They can cite bad company policies or practices, and it can negatively affect the legal defense you may otherwise have against charges of negligence. On an individual level, not many people realize that the closest many of us average citizens will come to going to jail will be through our actions behind the wheel. Now let's focus on some of the implications distracted driving has on your companies. Focusing on business reasons, some business owners have actually said, I can't afford not to have my employees use their phones while driving. There would be too much lost productivity. From my experience in the field with Federated for 12 years, when I visit with business owners, I did hear that quite a bit, but it tended to be with contractors, not so much with auto dealers. But you may have in your company a policy or just an informal policy, if you will, that employees need to be available at all times, whether it be with your porters or parts runners. But important to focus on that, and if that's really a need for the company or just more of a preference. Many times employers feel that if they're not able to communicate at all times, productivity is decreased. However, it might just involve changing some of the ways that you communicate throughout the day with your employees. But generally and overall, it doesn't impact productivity as much as you think it does. Further, I got to ask, how would you feel if you were on the phone with one of your employees when an accident occurred and the accident resulted in them being injured or killed? This wouldn't be a good situation. That'd be some crushing bit of news that you'd have to deliver to the surviving spouse and family of that employee. Just not something you want to be involved with. It's simply not worth it. And in all cases, a phone call can simply wait until the driver has reached their destination or can pull over. Then there's a legal side, so I'd encourage all businesses to think bigger picture. Imagine yourself being in a courtroom answering questions from a plaintiff's attorney or judge about your company policies and practices. From today's standpoint, how comfortable are you with your current program? How confident are you that you have the screening and monitoring practices in place for all drivers operating for your company? And is that going to be enough to prove to the court that you've done everything in your power to take distracted driving seriously? It's important to have your employees sign off on those policies as well, saying that they understand and agree to them. Juries are deciding distracted driving cases with devastating results for businesses. Distracted drivers and the companies they are driving for are being prosecuted, sometimes for punitive damages, which in certain states and in certain circumstances cannot be paid for with insurance. This requires companies to take up to $1 million plus hit that might come from such a settlement, and I'd ask how many businesses can stay in business after that sort of thing. The answer is probably not many could. So here are some other common losses beyond the courtroom. I'm sure there's many others that you could probably think of, but listed here we have increased insurance premiums, lost profitability, lost customers, lost productivity, business closure, damaged reputation, damaged vehicles, and injured employees. Beyond the financial consequences, I think it's important, again, to think about the lives that are changed by distracted driving, both for the driver and the victim, and all of their family members as well. Ask you to think about the consequences of how you'd feel living with knowing that there was more that you could have done to prevent one of your employees from being injured or killed, or injuring or killing someone else because of their distracted driving. So the question really comes down to, do you want to help change your employees' behaviors and attitudes towards distracted driving? And are you ready to make a difference? And I think everybody would say yes on that, because it's really not that difficult. And I do have a few easy steps for you to get started in this process. Driving risk is very manageable, well within the control of a business. And often the first place to start is with the policy. So the first step is to adopt strong driving policies. Not only do safe driving policies help maintain consistency with how your expectations are communicated to your employees, they may very well reduce your chances of becoming a courtroom statistic. As stated before, the judge and juries are not sympathetic in cases of death or serious injury due to poor decisions made behind the wheel. Business owners and managers need to ensure they're doing their part to provide adequate driver training and implement the proper policies to best protect not only their employees but also their business. Make certain you've done your part as a business to train and communicate with your employees and set those clear expectations. Driving policies outline appropriate and inappropriate behaviors for operating company vehicles or driving for the company in their own vehicles, and that's often an exposure overlooked. Often these policies lay out the insurance company's driving standards as well as company-specific standards that need to be observed by all employees. They may also reference other safe driving policies in effect for the business, such as a mobile device policy, distracted driving policy, or vehicle usage policies. Often, a comprehensive multi-layered program is the best way to go, not just a single policy. This is a sample mobile device policy. You have to pardon the small font there, but this policy allows the employer to customize the content to fit their business needs. We developed this last year, and those buttons that are in gray there, you see to the left side of the page, you can add or remove items. Certain items are what an insurance company requires anyway to insure the drivers, so those are not changeable, but the majority of them are changeable to the business purpose. Bottom line would be that those who do not have the sound policies in place are the ones with the limited defense in the event of an accident, and it's not a good place to be. They're putting their business in harm's way. It's important to have employees acknowledge that they've read and understand all policies, again, by requiring their signature on those policies, and the policies must be taken seriously by all, and employees must know that their job may depend on it. It's equally as important to follow this up with enforcement of the policy, so all managers and owners are on board and they demonstrate that they also buy into the program. That's a critical component of this. This is not a time for the do as I say, not as I do thing. Safe driving is everyone's responsibility. So it's all about changing behaviors and educating employees, just like we're doing here today. The key is to work on raising awareness. I'm probably not teaching you anything new today, really, other than maybe a few statistics. It's really about raising that awareness and having the frequent reminders and a call to action for your employees. How often are you specifically addressing the risk in driving, the risk of driving and distracted driving in your business? I'd encourage you to hold a safe driving meeting with all your employees after you've developed and updated your company driving policies. Communicate openly with them on any changes you've made to your program and make sure that they've read and understand the policies. And I'd make the meeting as lively and informative as possible, raising their awareness and making sure a discussion is a big part of the meeting. Get their feedback, ask them what they're seeing out there on the road, and really get that discussion going. That's really where they're going to get tuned in, energized, and they're going to take part in the meeting on a whole new level. Use our support resources such as the training outline, employee handout, quiz, and safety poster if you wish, and these are all complimentary to AIADA members. Here's some contact information for you where you can order our What's Important to You program. You can simply log on to AIADA.org or contact Terry Thompson at Federated Insurance. I'll give you a minute just to write that contact information down there if you wish. We also have blink of an eye materials available to you. That's one of our previous distracted driving campaigns. A little different flavor, same important message. And I'd also like to take time to mention that once a year, Federated hosts a 2.5-day Risk Management Academy seminar for auto dealers. This seminar focuses on dealer operations and increased loss exposures and solutions that impact dealer results. Topics include hiring practices, employment practices, work comp solutions, and managing risk with demos, loaners, rentals, test drives, and key control. We also have sessions on disaster planning, cyber liability, and underwriting best practices. In other words, how to get your best insurance price. This year, the seminar is held May 22nd through 24th at Federated's home office here in Owatonna, Minnesota. The seminar itself is complimentary. The dealer would be responsible for transportation, accommodations, and any incidental meals. And for more information on this and to register, check out federatedinsurance.com and click on the Risk Management Academy link, or simply email drm at fedins.com. That's short for Federated Insurance, with any further questions that you might have. So I really want to thank you so much for your time today. I hope you found this webinar helpful in not only raising and renewing your own awareness to distracted driving, but also providing you with a few solutions you could take back to your businesses. Please drive safely, and thank you.
Thank you, Matt, for your insight into this extremely important topic. I've been to the Risk Management Seminar, and it's so informative and important, and I highly recommend that all of you on here attend. We encourage you to share the videos with your employees, community, and local schools. In closing, I have just a quick word about the Border Adjustment Tax as it relates to AIADA and our members. The Border Adjustment Tax, or BAT, as you've been seeing in our materials, of 20% is a major concern to our dealer members and the industry. Please join AIADA for a special fly-in March 8th to 9th. This is an opportunity to join other dealers to make the case with House members and their staff on how destructive the tax will be on our industry and to the consumer. For information, contact our office at 519-7800 or go to aiada.org to register for this no-charge event. Thank you all again for joining us in today's session. Have a great day.